Dragon Monarch System. Chapter 2. Julia Onard and Watson Singer. 11 to 14 minutes. Master is unconscious. Should we feed him a healing potion? At this rate, he might end up in a coma, or worse, he might even die. Watson Singer was an old man who has been working as a butler for generations now. Despite looking 60 years old, he was actually a few hundred years older. His long life has allowed him to see the rise and fall of many great nations, geniuses, and powerhouses. Watson had long hair and a white beard. He was wearing what a typical butler would wear. He currently was the head butler of his castle. "There is no need to do that. That bastard should just die," coldly replied the maid sitting opposite Watson. Her name was Julia Onard. Julia was the daughter of one of the most powerful noble houses on this continent. Julia was one of Aditya's wives. But she always had disguised herself as a maid, so that Aditya would never know about her and see her real face. "But milady, if we don't heal Lord Aditya, his death will mean the end of your life. As the butler and servant of Onard's noble house, I cannot allow that to happen." The only reason a princess of a powerful noble house was disguised as a maid was that she needed to protect Aditya from secret, as her life was connected to his. "I know, Watson. I am just sick of it. That man, no, he is not even worthy of being called a man. He doesn't mind whether we live or die. If it wasn't for the contract binding me, I would have never come to a place like this." "Milady, I think." Both Watson and Julia turned silent, hearing the footsteps. Tap, tap. When the figure whose entire body was shrouded in darkness walked onto the dining table and kept walking forwards the kitchen, for a second both Watson and Julia were left shocked to their core. Others might not know it, but Watson and Julia knew how drunk Aditya was. They were not expecting Aditya to regain his consciousness for at least a week. The dining hall was about 50 meters big. In the middle of the hall, there was a huge 10 meters long and 2 meters wide table with multiple chairs. Sitting at the table, both Julia and Watson looked at Aditya, who was murmuring something about eating while walking toward the kitchen. "Master." Aditya stopped walking and looked at the dining table. The entire hall was shrouded in darkness. There was no light in the whole castle. It was only because of the moonlight that he was able to walk in the darkness. The yellow light of the candles that were placed on the dining table made it easier for Aditya to see the faces of his loyal butler and maid, Watson and Julia. When Aditya came here, both Watson and Julia has been working to serve him. Even when all the butlers and maids of this castle left, Julia and Watson never left his side. "What is it, Julia?" Aditya stopped and asked with a smile. Remembering the things both Watson and Julia did for him in the past, Aditya couldn't help but smile. Unlike normal cultivators, both Julia and Watson were able to see through the darkness. Both of them were left astonished seeing the pure smile on Aditya's face. Before, Aditya was always drunk, so he never had any proper conversation with Watson and Julia. This was the first time they had seen Aditya smile. Although Aditya's hair was messed up, his pure smile added more charm to his face. This Aditya looked completely different from his drunken version. The current Aditya looked very charming and handsome. Being a dragon, Aditya was naturally handsome. His face was even more charming without being drunk. Aditya had long dark blue hair that reached his back. He had a sharp jawline and an otherworld handsome face. He was 177 centimeters tall and was about 85 kilograms. Due to his constant drinking of alcohol, his weight has been increasing. What happened to him? He doesn't look like he is drunk anymore. What is this sudden change in the aura around him? Did he perhaps change? No, a man like him can never change. What I'm even thinking. No one knew the thoughts going on in Julia's mind. "Young master, when did you wake up?" Watson, being a man with 100 years of experience, kept his expression unchanged. Since Julia was thinking about something else, she failed to see the changes in current Aditya, but Watson was able to see the changes. Watson decided to not talk about the changes within Aditya for now. "I just woke about 30 minutes. Aditya's eyes fell on the dining table. Seeing the food on the table, he felt he couldn't hold himself any longer. "Watson, do you mind if I joined you too?" Aditya asked without moving his eyes from the dishes that were served on the table. Once again both Watson and Julia widened their eyes in shock. The Aditya they knew would never sit to eat with them. Even though Aditya was kicked out of his royal family, he never forgot his noble etiquette. Aditya never allowed any servants to be with him. Everyone in the castle was ordered to eat after Aditya did. "If you don't mind, then you can join us, young master," Watson quickly replied while trying not to show his shock. Since when did he become so polite? Julia asked herself once again. Without thinking too much, Aditya took the head chair of the dining table. Julia was on his right side while Watson was on his left. Watson began to serve food on his master's plate, while Julia didn't stop looking at Aditya, which was making him feel a little uncomfortable. "Julia, why are you staring at me like that?" Aditya asked with an awkward smile. Julia was been staring at Aditya non-stop. While asking, Aditya also took a few extra seconds to look at Julia. Julia had long purple hair that reached down to her waist. Her hair is always tied in two messy low pigtails, with a square fringe hanging just above her purple eyes. Julia had a curvaceous body. Her chest was above average. Despite not using any makeup, Julia was more beautiful than any average girl. Many men in this town have a crush on Aditya. Whenever the previous Aditya went to a bar, there were always some men who wanted Aditya to sell Julia to them. But the previous Aditya always refused to do that. "Master, I noticed that you seem different than before." Julia couldn't speak, looking at Aditya, seeing his intense gaze. Julia spoke while lowering her head. There was a small blush on her face that no one noticed, not even Julia herself knew about it. "I somehow managed to awaken dragon bloodline." "I see you awakened your dragon bloodline. That's real." Say what? Both Julia and Watson dropped their forks on the table as their entire bodies froze in shock. Without being bothered about their reaction, Aditya started to eat as if the more time he wasted, the more hungry his stomach was getting. After an entire minute passed, both Julia and Watson recovered from their shock. Seeing Aditya eating calmly, Julia didn't know whether he was lying or not, even though she felt the changes within his body. Before there was no mana surging throughout Aditya's body, but now there was not much mana in this body. "Master, is it really true?" Watson asked. Aditya could hear Watson's voice trembling in excitement. Gulp. Swallowing down the piece of bread, Aditya nodded his head. "Today when I woke up, something strange happened. After that, I discovered my entire body has changed." "Master, what bloodline did you manage to awaken?" Aditya's royal family's bloodline has various types of heavenly dragons bloodline mixed in it, so it was totally random which bloodline one would awaken. In the world of cultivation, bloodline plays a very important role in determining the power of an individual. For dragons, awakening their bloodline means they are bound to reach great heights. "My bloodline is Inferno Blaze Dragon." "Young master, are you really sure it is an Inferno Blaze Dragon bloodline?" Aditya just normally nodded while eating. "Why both of you are reacting this way? Is Inferno Blaze Dragon bloodline that powerful or what?" Aditya had zero knowledge about the dragon bloodline. Since he never managed to awaken his bloodline, he stopped studying about them. Julia and Watson looked at each other and sighed. This was their Aditya, there was no doubt about it. At first, Watson suspected that this Aditya was a fake, but seeing his uncaring and unsurprised attitude, it was clear that this Aditya was their master. "Master, you might not know it, but Inferno Blaze Dragon bloodline is very rare. Though the bloodline is not strong enough to compare with the bloodline of the royal family. In thousands of years, the young master is the first person to awaken Inferno Dragon bloodline. By the way, Watson, I have been meaning to ask this for a while. But what happened to the light mosses of our castle? In this world, light mosses are a special kind of moss that glows brightly in the darkness. Usually, these mosses are used for lighting houses and streets. Not everyone in this world could afford these mosses as they were a little expensive and rare. Master, don't you remember, a week ago you sold all the light mosses to buy alcohol? For some reason, Aditya felt Julia was mocking him when she said those words. Sigh. Aditya put his on his forehead and sighed. Just how low the previous me had fallen to even sell the mosses of this castle. No wonder everything was so dark in the castle. It looks like years of drinking alcohol have emptied the treasury. I doubt there is any money left to even pay Watson and Julia's salaries. The previous Aditya had sold many things just to get money for alcohol. He even dismissed all guards and maids of the castle to save enough money for wine. Even the food that Aditya was eating was the food that was meant for low-class families. The food was also bought using Watson's money. It looks like I have to go through the budget reports and secure at least enough money to buy daily necessities. Young master, are you okay? Watson worriedly asked. How can I be okay, Watson? At this rate, we will be brought to the streets. I have to secure enough money to pay the debts and start my future plans. Being a man who worked under his grandpa, who was the prime minister of a country, Aditya knew everything there is to know about ruling a kingdom. In this mind, Aditya already had some thoughts on improving the conditions of his tiny kingdom. But to do that, he would need funds. Young master, are you out of money to drink alcohol again? Watson mistakenly assumed that Aditya wanted money for his wine. Hearing Watson's question, Aditya felt embarrassed and ashamed of himself. It was because of this his loyal butler and maid was suffering. No, from now on I won't drink any more. Let's not talk about this now. When we are done eating, Watson came with me to my study room. Not understanding why Aditya suddenly looked so changed, both Julia and Watson continued to have their food. By the way, did the nobles pay their taxes yet? Although this kingdom was one of the smallest kingdoms in this world, Aditya still had 2 nobles working under him. Watson stopped eating as a complicated look appeared on his face. Young master, the thing is in recent years both nobles have stopped giving any taxes. It is rumored that both of them are working with the neighboring kingdoms and making a plan to overthrow master from his rule. So far we have killed at least hundreds of assassins. Recently the number of assassins only increased. I see. A bone-chilling smile appeared on Aditya's face. Since somehow was planning on assassinating him, there was no need for him to hold back against them.